Okay, I'm going to get started this morning just by welcoming everyone. Welcome to Wat Tung Yu. Nice to see all of you guys here this morning. Welcome to everyone online who's joining us as well. Today is the essentially third day of a retreat that I've been teaching here, where there's students that are learning how to develop their life practice to be able to get to the first stage of enlightenment. And I understand some of you guys might just be here for the morning for our morning class, and that's fine. You're welcome to come in and join us for the morning or this afternoon and tomorrow. You get welcome to come for as long as you like or as short as you like. So welcome to all of you guys, whether you're here just for a brief little period or you're planning to stay all day long, you're welcome to stay. I'll explain to you the things that we're doing today. The first thing we're going to be doing is I'm going to be teaching loving kindness meditation and helping students to understand what that is. And then we're going to actually be doing loving kindness meditation together. This is a meditation that's going to help you to eliminate anger and hatred and ill will and all those lesser versions like frustration, agitation, annoyance, where you can get to the point where you have nothing but love and kindness towards other beings. Right now, you probably have a certain amount of bitterness and hostility and harshness in some cases towards other beings, but you can actually eradicate all of this. You can get to the point where you live harmoniously with all beings. And this particular meditation is one of the things that's going to help you to be able to do that. After that, we're going to take a little break, and then I'm going to teach what is Karma and how does it affect me. This is a natural law that the Buddha is helping you to learn and awaken to. There's no beliefs in the teachings of the Buddha. This is a natural law that you're learning and investigating. You're reflecting on that in order to independently verify it, and then you can practice and see the truth for yourself. I'm going to demystify this natural law for you and help you to be able to see this cause and effect or this action and result. Then we're going to be talking about what is merit. This is a unique type of wholesome karma that you'll need to understand in order to make your way to the enlightened mental state that the Buddha taught. Then we're going to be taking a break for about 6 hours. We're having free time. We've organized an excursion where if students would like to go out to an orphanage, we're going to a children's orphanage. So if people would like to go travel to that, you're welcome to travel to that with us. We're going to be collecting up some funds, and we're going to go to a store, a wholesale store, and purchase a bunch of food and take this orphanage a bunch of food and donate that to them. And then we're going to come back here that by 6:30 this evening, we're going to be doing meditation again together. And then I'm going to be teaching about the jhanas. These are preliminary phases that the mind goes through where you're experiencing enhanced qualities of mind. And this is an indication for you that you're getting closer and closer to that first stage of enlightenment. So I'm going to be explaining to students what these jhanas are and how to know that your mind is actually experiencing these as you're putting together the teachings of the Buddha. So again, welcome to all of you here. Welcome to everyone online. As you guys are going through our class today, if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask any and all questions that you like. If you're here at the temple and you would like to ask questions, we have microphones in the white bowl in front of the camera. All you need to do is get a microphone. You can press the gray button. The lights are going to come on, and you hold this up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. If you're speaking here without a microphone, the people online won't be able to hear you. And if you get one of these microphones, you can just keep it with you because you might have more than one question, or the people around you might have a question, and you can just share the microphone with the people around you. If you're online and you would like to ask questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, and I'll be able to see that. Or if you're in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any and all questions that you like. So I'm going to share with you guys this topic of loving kindness meditation, because this is a meditation that's going to help you to essentially rewire the mind, where you can have love and kindness towards all beings. Each one of the meditations that the Buddha taught, there are certain unwholesome qualities that you're eliminating from the mind, and there are certain wholesome qualities that you're cultivating. Meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind, and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. The Buddha essentially discovered 10 individual pollutions in the mind, and then he provides the tools in the techniques of how to eliminate these from the mind. When you eliminate all these pollutions out of the mind, this is where the mind experiences the enlightened mental state. The enlightened mental state is where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy, and no longer experiences any discontent feelings. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't be experiencing any anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment, jealousy. All these feelings and others are completely eliminated from the enlightened mind. Because an individual has eliminated these pollutions of the mind starts performing optimally. You'll notice that you have focus and clarity, deep memory. You'll notice that the mind's performing optimally where there's concentration. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming. They're at ease, where you won't have bitterness and hostility in your relationships any longer because you would have transformed your mind and you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile to the people around you. You'll notice that you're not even in a bad mood. By the time you get to enlightenment, you will have eliminated the causes and conditions that produce a bad mood. So these meditations are part of that training, but you need much more than just the meditation itself. But because meditation is so important, there's a certain aspect of this practice that we're teaching meditation. So previously in this retreat, I've already taught the breathing mindfulness meditation. This is targeting to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. This is the cause of all discontent feelings. Whenever your mind's angry or sad or frustrated or agitated or annoyed or any of these other discontent feelings, it's actually the mind itself that is causing these. Oftentimes you might think that it's other people that's causing you to experience these feelings, but it's actually not other people that's causing you to experience this. This is the lack of wisdom that the unenlightened mind has, is that it'll tend to blame your feelings and emotions on other people. But you can learn through the teachings of the Buddha and independently verify that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. And because your mind is causing these feelings, you can actually eliminate them. Whereas if it was other people who were causing these feelings, you would never be able to actually eliminate them. So this meditation of breathing mindfulness meditation is eliminating craving, desire, attachment. That's the mind longing, yearning, having expectations, wanting things to be a certain way. And it's also helping you to cultivate the wholesome qualities of mindfulness or awareness of mind and concentration, where you can be focused and have clarity of mind. Then today, what I'm going to be teaching you is loving kindness meditation. This is going to help you to eliminate anger, hatred, and ill will, as well as all the lesser versions, like frustration, irritation, annoyance, and all those lesser versions. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't even have the slightest dislike towards another being. Right now, there's probably certain people that you like, and there's probably certain people that you dislike. That dislike that you have in your mind, it's coming from your cravings. It's coming from your expectations. It's coming from wanting this other person to be a certain way. And if you want people to be a certain way, you can only like people who are that way. When they meet your expectations, you will say you like them. But when people don't meet your expectations, you will say you don't like them or you dislike them. That's coming from your own mind. And you can get to the point where you can live harmoniously with all beings. And this meditation of loving kindness meditation is going to help you to accomplish that by eliminating the anger, hatred, ill will, and all those lesser versions, and by cultivating the wholesome quality of loving kindness. By the time you transform your mind with loving kindness, not only will you have love and kindness for all other beings, but you'll have loving kindness for this being who you are as well. Because sometimes what you might have in your mind is like negative self-talk, like an inner dialogue where you're degrading and diminishing yourself. And if you have that kind of talk in your own mind, this meditation is going to help you to eliminate that. So to help you guys understand a bit about what loving kindness is it's active goodwill towards all beings without judgment, where you're not judging other people to determine whether they deserve your loving kindness or not. You're actually just practicing this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. You have this goodwill, this active goodwill towards them. This is an antidote or a wholesome root or a remedy for anger, hatred, and ill will, and all the lesser versions. It eliminates the harshness, the bitterness, the hostility, and the resentment within your own mind. And as I mentioned, that can be directed towards other people, but it can also be directed towards yourself. If you tend to be bitter and harsh and hostile towards others, you probably have that inner dialogue where you're negative and degrading to yourself too. But you can get rid of that. You can have a positive and uplifting inner dialogue within your own mind. But you need to be able to train your mind to be able to do that. You don't need to live with that harshness and hostility. You can eliminate it from the mind if you have the wisdom of how to actually do it. Loving kindness is part of what's called the Brahma Viharas. The Brahma Viharas are 4 healthy mental states that need to be cultivated in the mind as part of your journey to enlightenment. This is one of the aspects of getting to enlightenment. This is where you cultivate loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. These are 4 healthy mental states that are transforming the mind away from certain other unwholesome qualities of mind. And this is something that I teach in other courses and retreats that I share with students. So loving kindness is this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill towards others. This is essentially true love. It's unconditional love, that you didn't have to do anything to earn my love, so there's nothing that you could do for me to stop loving you. I love everybody. I have a genuine interest in seeing you be well. That's what love is, this genuine interest in seeing you be well. I don't want anything from you. I don't expect anything from you. I just love you as you are. And as you decide you would like to learn and grow and develop, I'm here to support you, but I don't have any expectations of what you should or shouldn't be doing. That's what love is, where you can just love everybody as they are. Sometimes what you might experience is where you can only love people when they do things your way. That's what people tend to experience in the unenlightened state, is you meet somebody you're maybe physically attracted to, maybe you're attracted to them financially, or maybe intellectually you're attracted to this person, and now you spend time with them, and they're meeting your expectations, and you might say to them, I love you. Right? And then they say, I love you too. Right? And all of a sudden you guys are in love. You've fallen in love. But then time goes on and they're not meeting your expectations anymore. And you say, I don't love you anymore. I've fallen out of love with you. We have to break up. Well, that's not actual love. That's called craving, desire, attachment. That's wants and expectations masquerading as love. That the individual is saying that as long as you do what I want you to do, I will say I love you. But when you stop doing what I want you to do, then I don't love you anymore. This is selfishness. The mind might say, I love you, therefore I want you to be with me because you make me happy. Right? This is attachment. This is, I can only be happy if you're with me. And when you're away from me, I miss you and I feel lonely and I feel miserable. That's not actual love that's causing that. That's the craving, desire, attachment. That's the mind holding on and wanting this being to be permanent. And as long as the mind is doing this, you're going to have broken relationship after broken relationship after broken relationship, because you can only love people who do things your way. And if that's the case, there's really only one person in the world that you can actually love, because there's only one person in the world that's ever going to do things your way. Do you know who that person is? Yourself, right? There's no one else that's going to do things exactly your way. So if you can only love people who do things your way, then that means you can only love one person in the world. And sometimes you might find that hard to do. You might have a hard time loving yourself. So what you need to be able to do is separate the choices and decisions that someone's making from the person themselves. So that way you can love the person, meaning you have a genuine interest in seeing this being be well, but understand that this person is going to make decisions differently than you, and that's normal. That's called impermanence. Not everyone's going to make decisions the same way as you. But with the ego in your mind, your ego might be telling you that you're right and everybody else is wrong. The way that you make decisions is the right way, and the way that other people make decisions is the wrong way, right? And now if people make decisions differently than you, you might think that you need to dislike them or that you can't love them. But what you would like to be able to get to is where you can love all beings, regardless of the decisions that they make, understanding that people will make decisions differently than you. That's normal, right? So you need to be able to separate the choices and decisions somebody makes from the person themselves. I've never met anybody who's ever said that they've agreed 100% with everything that their parents have done, right? Nobody. I've never met anybody that's experienced that. So you separate the choices and decisions. Mom and dad are going to make decisions differently than you. Brothers and sisters are going to make decisions differently than you. Your life partner, your children, your coworkers, your neighbors, they're going to make decisions differently than you. But you can love them as a person, meaning you have a genuine interest in seeing them be well. But you need to understand that their wellness is a function of their decisions, not a function of your decisions. They're responsible for their own wellness. You're not responsible for somebody else's wellness. Each individual person is responsible for their own well-being. So if you can come to this understanding of what loving kindness is and what true love is, then you can practice this with the people around you, and more you'll be experiencing this coming back to you. But if you go around practicing craving, desire, attachment, and you're thinking that that's love, then that's what you're going to be getting back. Whereas if you can only love people if they do things your way, this isn't really love. If we call it conditional love, even though there's no such thing as conditional love, that's essentially what it is. It's if you meet my conditions, I will say I love you. But if you stop meeting my conditions, if you stop meeting my expectations, I don't love you anymore. We might call that conditional love, but there's no such thing as that. If you're out in the world practicing that, that's what's going to come back to you. And now you're going to find it very challenging to have a life partner or to have relationships with your children or your parents or your siblings and people like this. But the more that you practice true love, where you love people unconditionally, the more that you're going to experience that coming back to you in your day-to-day life. And you'll be able to spot it when it's coming back to you. So this meditation is going to help you to cultivate this, but you need the wisdom to understand what loving kindness is so that you can go out into the world and practice it. This meditation isn't mystical and magical that it's going to magically zap you into a loving being. You need to understand the wisdom of what loving kindness is and practice the meditation so that you can be practicing the meditation, kind of filling up your gas tank, and then you can go out into the world and practice through your intentions, your speech, and your actions to be loving and kind with all beings around you. And now as you're putting that out, that's what will come back to you. Sometimes what we do is we want other people to change. We might be in relationships where there's bitterness and harshness and hostility, and we want other people to change. But the way that you change and transform your life is you need to do the work to change. And as you do the work to change and you transform, then you can transform your relationships. So this meditation is part of that, to be able to help you transform. So I went for a really long time wanting my mom to change. I kept wanting mom to change over and over and over again. And our relationship never improved because I kept wanting mom to change. But when I started changing, when I started training my mind using loving kindness meditation, and I started changing the way I interacted with mom, then mom started to slowly change. So if you actually improve the condition of your mind and you change the way you interact in the world, you'll see that your relationships will transform. But it starts with transforming your own mind, and this meditation is part of what's going to help you to do that. So here's some words from the Buddha where he's talking about loving kindness, because yesterday in this retreat, I taught something called the Eightfold Path. And the Eightfold Path is the core central teaching of the Buddha that is guiding you to enlightenment. That's guiding you to this enlightened mental state where there's peace and joy, and it's a permanent mental state that you're experiencing at all times. It's physically impossible for an enlightened being to experience anger and sadness and these other discontent feelings. So here what I'm doing is I'm sharing with you some words of the Buddha where you can see loving kindness plugs into the Eightfold Path. Because yesterday I taught this core central teaching of the Buddha called the Eightfold Path, and I explained how his other teachings integrate into it. And here I'm showing you where that's occurring with this loving kindness meditation, so that you can see that this loving kindness meditation integrates into the overall path to enlightenment, and you can build that confidence to know that. There's something called right intention or right thinking or right thought. There's three aspects of this. It's called right intention, where you have the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. The intention of renunciation is where you have the thinking or the thought of letting go, because there's certain unwholesome things that you have in your mind that you're going to need to be willing to let go of. And there's certain false beliefs and certain false opinions that you have about the world that you're going to need to bring in wisdom to be able to see your false beliefs are false. It's not true. And now you need to get rid of your false beliefs and bring in this wisdom. Nothing in the teachings of the Buddha is based in belief. You're not believing his teachings. He is not explaining to you the way the world should be. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And he's not giving you a bunch of beliefs that you believe a bunch of things and then you hope something good happens when you die. He's also not giving you rules or commandments. He's explaining to you the natural world and how the world functions around you. And there are certain beliefs that you have. Beliefs meaning you don't know that it's true or false. Somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. And when you bring in this wisdom of the teachings of the Buddha, that you can learn it, you can reflect on it to independently verify it, and you can practice it, you'll be able to see the truth of the way the world is and how these natural laws function. And as you bring in this wisdom, you're going to see that it conflicts with your current beliefs. And you're going to need to be willing to look at that and get rid of these false beliefs and bring in this wisdom. And this is through the intention of renunciation, where you're willing to let go. Because if your mind's currently experiencing anger and sadness and frustration, annoyment, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, and these kinds of things, there are certain false beliefs that your mind has in your mind. One of the first false beliefs that you're going to need to eliminate is the belief that other people are causing you to be angry. Other people are annoying you. Other people are frustrating you. When you learn something called the Four Noble Truths, you'll be able to see the truth that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. If you continue to walk around with the belief that other people are causing these feelings, you'll never actually be able to experience the peace and joy, because you wouldn't be applying the tools and techniques to eradicate the causes and conditions that are producing these feelings. So here in right intention, we have the intention of renunciation, where your mind's willing to let go of its unwholesomeness and let go of its false beliefs. But you're not getting rid of your false beliefs and bringing in new beliefs. You're bringing in wisdom so that you understand the truth about these natural laws and how the world actually works. Here, where you can see the intention of non-ill will and the intention of harmlessness, this is where loving kindness fits into the Eightfold Path, because the Buddha is teaching you to develop the thinking or the thoughts or the intention of non-ill will, which is goodwill. A double negative in English is a positive. So non-ill will is the same thing as saying goodwill. The intention of goodwill. And harmlessness is being disinterested or incapable of causing harm to another being. As long as you're putting out harm to other beings, this harm is going to come back to you. When you're harming another being, you might be harming their material possessions, you might be harming their physical body, you might be harming their reputation, and you're not interested in causing any harm to other beings, because when you cause harm to other beings, this harm is just going to come back to you. So the Buddha teaches you to cultivate the intention or the thinking or the thought of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to other beings. So loving kindness meditation is going to help you to develop this intention or this thinking or these thoughts of harmlessness and goodwill towards all beings. As part of right speech yesterday, I taught the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. This is the natural laws of how you can speak in ways that doesn't cause harm to others. The Buddha teaches you to speak at the proper time. What you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. And I went into details about this. What does it mean to speak at the proper time? What does it mean to speak the truth? What does it mean to speak gentle, using your tone, your tempo, and your word choice to speak gentle? And what does it mean to speak beneficially, being clear and concise when you're speaking? And then speaking with a mind of loving kindness. How could you speak with a mind of loving kindness if you don't have a tool or technique to cultivate the loving kindness in your mind? So the Buddha is giving you the guidance of loving kindness meditation to be able to cultivate the mind with loving kindness, because then your speech can emanate from that. So if you have loving kindness in your mind as a mental quality, then you can actually speak in ways that is loving and kind. Love is actually not a feeling. This is one of the misunderstandings that people have. They think that love is a feeling. A feeling is going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. That's what sadness does. It arises, it changes, and it fades away. That's what your annoyment does. It arises, it changes, it fades away. That's what your stress does. It arises, changes, and fades away. These are conditioned feelings. But love is a mental state. unconditional love is a permanent mental state. So if you can cultivate this permanent mental state of love, now your speech and your actions can emanate from this, where you can be loving and kind to all beings around you. So this is where it integrates into the Eightfold Path. You're going to need to practice loving kindness meditation to be able to cultivate it in your mind. But we could even look at something like the right action that you guys learned yesterday. And you can see that you need to have loving kindness in order to ensure you're not killing or stealing or having sexual misconduct and things like this. Here's some more words from the Buddha on some other teachings where he says, prior to this, he was actually teaching his students. He was teaching them the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. And he was reminding them that it's wise to speak at the proper time. What you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. But then he was also reminding them that other people aren't going to speak to you that way. That sometimes people are going to speak to you at the improper time. They're going to speak to you falsehoods. They're going to speak to you harshly. They're going to speak to you unbeneficially. And they're going to speak to you with a mind of inner hate. And now he's giving them guidance of when people speak to you this way, what should you do? He says, herein, monks, you should train thus. Our minds will remain unaffected. We shall utter no evil words. We shall reside compassionate for their welfare, with a mind of loving kindness, without inner hate. We shall reside enveloping that person with a mind filled with loving kindness. And starting with him, we shall reside enveloping the all-encompassing world with a mind filled with loving kindness, abundant, joyful, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. That is how you should train, monks. So the Buddha is teaching you that when other people are bitter and harsh and hostile with you, it's unwise to be bitter and harsh and hostile back. It's kind of like if your family member picked up a rubber ball of anger and threw it around the room. Well, if you pick up the rubber ball of anger and you throw it around the room, and then they pick it up and they throw it around the room, and you pick it up and throw it around the room, next thing you know, you got all these rubber balls of anger and hatred bouncing around the room. Well, if somebody picks up the rubber ball of anger and they throw it around the room, and you don't give it any energy, it's just going to roll to the corner and it's going to be in the corner. You're not going to have this anger and hostility bouncing all around the room. So that's what the Buddha is teaching you. You can't eliminate anger and hatred that's coming from other people by you putting out anger and hatred. You would like to extinguish this. And the way that you extinguish it is when someone's being bitter and harsh and hostile, just don't give it any energy. Just walk away. That's one of the best things that you can do. Remain unaffected by this individual. This other individual is speaking unwisely. They don't realize the harm that they're causing. Have concern for their misfortune. Have active goodwill towards them, but don't choose to be bitter and harsh and hostile back, because that's not going to help you. That's just going to explode into fireworks. And next thing you know, you've got all kinds of difficulties and struggles in your relationships. So if someone would like to be bitter, harsh, and hostile, you can't control them. That's their choice. All you can do is control your own mind. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you, is to train your mind to be unaffected by what other people choose to do. Right now, that you might find that very challenging. But if you train your mind, you can get to the point that no matter what other people say, no matter what other people do, your mind is completely peaceful. And this is when you're free. This is when you're liberated your mind. If somebody else can say something to you and you get all angry and frustrated, you're not free. You're in prison, right? But you can get free where somebody else can say anything and you're not affected by it. You still might not choose to associate in this situation with that individual being bitter, harsh, and hostile, but your mind can remain completely peaceful and joyful. That's when you're free. That's when you're liberated. So these are some words from the Buddha about practicing loving kindness even when other people aren't being loving and kind. And this is the meditation that's going to help you to be able to accomplish that. Here's some more words from the Buddha about loving kindness. Here he's teaching his son. Sometimes people think that the Buddha left his family and he never came back to them. This is actually untrue. He actually came back to where he was with his family, and his son ends up ordaining with him. His wife ends up ordaining with him. His mother, essentially his stepmother, ordains with him. Various members of his family came to learn with him, and they actually got to enlightenment. So here he's teaching his son. He says, Rahula, develop meditation on loving kindness. For when you develop meditation on loving kindness, any ill will be abandoned. This is how a Buddha teaches. Very clear, very concise, very precise. We don't have to interpret his words. We don't have to figure out what he's saying. He's saying it very clearly. You would like to eliminate ill will in your mind? It's loving kindness meditation that's going to do it for you. Because the Buddha did that for his own mind, and he knew what it took to be able to get to that enlightened mental state. And then he spent the rest of his life from the age of 35 to 80 sharing with people how to accomplish the same mental state. So he was sharing with his son, hey, you would like to get rid of your anger, hatred, and ill will? It's loving kindness meditation that's going to do it for you, right? Very clear, very concise. Here's another one. Loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. Again, very clear, very concise. This is going out into the world and practicing loving kindness through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. The meditation is going to fill up your gas tank. Then you go out into the world and you practice it through your intention, speech, and actions. And this is where your relationships are going to really transform. As long as you're being bitter and harsh and hostile to other people, that's what's going to keep coming back to you. Until you transform your mind, you're going to continue to experience bitterness and harshness coming back to you in your day-to-day life. You need to decide to do the work to transform your mind so you can be loving and kind with others. And as you do that, you'll see more and more love and kindness coming back to you. Here's a teaching from the Buddha. He was actually talking to his students because his students oftentimes would go out and spend time with other students. And these other students were learning from other teachers. You might think that if a Buddha was alive during your lifetime, you would absolutely be interested in learning from that Buddha. But not everybody understood he was a Buddha. There's not some kind of physical characteristic that can indicate that this person is a Buddha. It's not like there's a special turn of the ear. It's not like there's a mole on their head that identifies this person as a Buddha. So not everybody knew that he was a Buddha. So there were other people that were teaching during his lifetime, claiming that it was their teachings that led to enlightenment. And there were people studying with those individual teachers. But the students of the Buddha would sometimes come together with students from other teachers, probably even like today. Some of my students probably interact with students from other teachers, right? And when those students come together, they talk and have conversation. And here the Buddha is saying to his students, like when you get together with those other students, suppose they should ask you, but what, friends, is the reason unarisen anger does not arise and arisen anger is abandoned? You should answer, the liberation of mind by loving kindness. For one who attends carefully to the liberation of mind by loving kindness, unarisen anger does not arise, and arisen anger is abandoned. This, friends, is the reason unarisen anger does not arise, and arisen anger is abandoned. So what unarisen anger is right now you're probably not angry. You're just sitting here listening to me talk. But buried in your mind is what's called a mental object of ill will. This is a deeply rooted container that if somebody triggers one of your cravings, your ill will arise, your anger will arise. That's unarisen anger. It's buried in your mind. It's unarisen. So the Buddha is saying the way to make sure that that doesn't arise is to practice loving kindness. And then once your anger has arisen, the way to get rid of it is loving kindness. This is the exact antidote or opposite of anger. So you can completely purify your mind of this anger. Essentially, the loving kindness meditation is like a jackhammer, breaking up this ill will in the mind and getting it out of the mind so that you can get to the point where your mind's completely purified and there's no anger at all. It's physically impossible for an enlightened being to experience anger because it just doesn't exist in the mind. That has been uprooted out of the mind. Just like a weed is growing into the ground, if you uproot that weed out of the ground, it will never grow again because it's impossible for it to actually grow. So if you uproot this ill will out of the mind, it's impossible for your mind to ever experience anger, hatred, ill will, or any of the other lesser versions like frustration, irritation, annoyance, and so forth, even the slightest dislike towards another being. Okay, so I'm going to teach you guys loving kindness meditation, but I'd like to pause here and see if you guys have any questions on what I've been sharing so far about loving kindness. And then after I answer any questions, then I'm going to teach you how to do the meditation. So remember here, if you guys have questions, we have the mics. We can pass them around to the back. If you guys online have questions, you can put that into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like. Is there anyone that has any questions? Gary, you have a question?
So with loving kindness meditation, it seems to be directed outward, like, to other beings and things like that. So my question is, does it automatically bring in self-love? Or I don't know how else to put it.
Loving kindness meditation is actually directed inward to your own mind. We're going to be doing affirmations where we're going to be making these rings where you start with I, meaning this being that you are, because in order to have loving kindness for others, you need to have loving kindness for this being, who you are, right? So you start with I, cultivating loving kindness within your own mind, rewiring your mind to have loving kindness for this being. Then you go through these successive rings where you get wider and wider and wider, and you ultimately get to all beings. But even when you're saying things like, may mom be peaceful, even though you're saying, may mom be peaceful, it's not like you're trying to invoke some special power to change mom. That's not what this meditation is. It's rewiring your mind to be having the intention and the thinking and the thoughts of mom being peaceful. And now you're cultivating that within your own mind so that then when you're around mom, you can be loving and kind with mom. And now that's what's going to transform your relationship. But you need to transform your mind where you're thinking about mom being peaceful and safe and well and free of discontentedness, so that now within your own mind, having rewired your mind that way, when you're around mom, you can be more loving and kind. So while we're doing these affirmations and we're calling off different names and different relationships and different groups of people, it's always directed inward. And you start with I, you go through successive rings, and then you ultimately get to all beings.
So just an added question. So if there's things about yourself you don't like, does that address that?
Yes. The reason why you don't like certain things about yourself is you have cravings and expectations for yourself, for this being. So breathing mindfulness meditation is going to help you get rid of your cravings, your wants, and your expectations of wanting things to be a certain way. And then this is going to help eliminate the anger and hatred towards this being, if you have that towards this being, or any of those lesser versions as well. So it's rewiring your mind, because right now what the unenlightened mind does is when something happens and you experience this painful feeling of anger arising, the mind tends to go down this well-worn path of anger and hostility and bitterness. And you know where that path goes. It leads to broken relationships. When you're bitter and harsh and hostile with people, they choose to leave out of your life. They're not interested in being around it. So what you're doing with this meditation and practicing loving kindness in day-to-day life is you're forging this new path. It's like getting out this machete and breaking through the stickers and the branches. And that's why it can be challenging at first to go down this new path. But now as you go down this new path more and more, this becomes the well-worn path, and this one overgrows. So now when someone does something that you would maybe see as disagreeable, any kind of anger that is arising in your own mind, you know that it's your own mind that's causing that. It's not this outside person who's causing your anger. So there doesn't benefit you to be bitter and harsh and hostile to this person. It's not helping anything. So you learn to go down this path of loving kindness. I don't see any other questions. Oh, here's one on Zoom. Is it impossible to have loving kindness for others if you don't have it for yourself first? Or is it just preferred to start with yourself? If you don't know how to have loving kindness towards this being who you are, you won't be able to practice it towards other beings. You need to have loving kindness for yourself first. So what some people choose to do, what I chose to do when I first learned this meditation, is I did loving kindness for myself a lot. Where you're going to see here, I might as well just move on. this meditation, you're doing these different rings where you're starting with I, and we're going to move through multiple rings, and then we get to all beings. What I did when I first started is I did myself over and over and over again. May I be peaceful, safe, well, and free of discontentedness. May I be free, because I had a lot of self-talk in my mind that was negative and degrading. And I also used to do my mom a lot because I had a lot of resentment towards my mom for the things that happened in our childhood. So my meditation when I first started was directed towards me, and I would do like 2, 3, 4 rings towards myself, and then some for my mom, and then I would get to all beings. But what we're going to do today is we're going to do about 5 or 6 rings, and you guys are going to hear me using these very general rings where I'm going to start with may I be peaceful, and I'm going to do that on the out breath, and you guys can repeat that within your own mind. Then I'm going to take another breath, and then I'm going to say may I be safe, and you can repeat that within your own mind on the out breath. Then I'll say may I be well, and then may I be free of all discontentedness and the suffering it causes. We're going to do this on the out breath, right? And then we're going to go to the next ring. Here, I'm just showing you kind of 3 rings in order to kind of use it as a visual aid, but I'm going to actually do probably about a good 6 rings when we're doing this meditation. And eventually we're going to get to all beings. And it's important to understand that you're not sending loving kindness to other people. This is physically impossible. You can't send loving kindness to someone through your meditation, and you can't change other people through your meditation. So when we say, may mom and dad be peaceful, we're not trying to change mom and dad. You can't change mom and dad. Mom and dad need to choose to be peaceful on their own. They need to train their own mind. What you're doing is you're cultivating in your mind that you aspire for mom and dad to be peaceful and safe and well and free of discontentedness, so that now when you're around them, that's going to emanate intention, speech, and actions that is more loving and kind around your parents. And you'll see these other rings that we do. So it's important to understand we're not sending loving kindness towards them. We're actually cultivating our own mind to have these qualities. But then eventually we're going to get to all beings. Okay? This particular meditation is going to gradually wear away your anger, hatred, and ill will. It's not going to be instantaneous. And some of you guys might not even notice any kind of change today, right? Because you can't do one meditation and then one day, well, wham, you're loving and kind. It's not like a button that you press. If there was a button I could press where everybody would be loving and kind, I would have pressed that button already, right? And you probably would have pressed it too, right? But it's not possible. But through gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress, you can actually gradually wear away this anger, hatred, and ill will. It's kind of like a digging tool. If you are digging with this tool, each day you're wearing wood away off the handle of this tool. You're not going to know how much wood you're wearing away from the handle of this tool each day, but when it's completely gone and it's time to replace this handle, you're going to know that. So the same thing is true when you're using this meditation and you're practicing these teachings. You're not going to know each day how much anger and hatred and ill will that you've worn away from the mind. But when it's completely gone, you're going to know that. Because when I wasn't bitter and harsh and hostile with my mom for 6 months, for a year, for 2 years, 3 years, I no longer was harsh and bitter towards her. I knew that my anger and hatred was gone from my mom towards my mom. So I didn't know each day when I was meditating how much anger I was eliminating, but when it was completely gone, I knew that. And it's the same thing with this digging tool. Right? So this meditation is going to gradually transform the mind away from this. The way that we're going to start this meditation is I'm going to start with some chanting to ease us into the meditation. And if you guys would like to chant, you're more than welcome to chant along with me. I have these chants on the laminated sheets over there on the cabinet. If you guys would like to pass them around, you're more than welcome to get one of the chanting sheets, because it has the Pali chants and it has the English translations on there too. During the lifetime of the Buddha, they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory, that everything he taught was oral. They used chanting just to commit the teachings to memory. They didn't actually write the teachings down because the technology to write things down didn't exist in the world during his lifetime. It was in China, but it wasn't in that region of the world. So that was technology during that time frame, 2,500 years ago. And it just hadn't made its way to the region of the world where the Buddha was. So they used chanting as a way to commit the teachings to memory. We don't need to chant in order to commit the teachings to memory anymore. We have books and audiobooks and videos and podcasts and things like this. So these chants, there's nothing mystical and magical about them. They're not a rite or ritual or a ceremony or worship or anything like that. If you read the English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I suspect his students created these either during his life or after his death, because the Buddha wouldn't have created these chants and said, here, chant these things to me, right? Because he would have eliminated his ego and his arrogance. He wouldn't have been putting himself above people, right? So these chants were probably created by his students, because if you learn from a teacher how to move from the anger and the sadness and the frustration and all these other discontent feelings to the peace and joy that is this enlightened mental state, and this is a permanent mental state, and this teacher didn't want anything from you, didn't expect anything from you, you'd probably have a lot of respect and gratitude for that person too. So I suspect his students created these either during his life or after his death. I chant these because when you chant them, it eases the mind into meditation, and you actually get more benefit out of the meditation itself. So that's why I chant them. And I also chant them on the way out. So if you'd like to chant along, you're more than welcome. Once we get into the meditation through the chanting, I'm going to give you some guidance on breathing mindfulness meditation. You're going to hear me for about 5 minutes kind of guiding you in breathing mindfulness meditation. This is the first one that I mentioned before. And in this retreat, I've already taught it, but I'm going to be teaching you through the guidance of the meditation itself. Then we're going to probably have like a little bit of a 3-minute meditation with breathing mindfulness meditation, just kind of preparing the mind, so that then I'm going to come back in with the loving kindness meditation. I'm going to be guiding you in the loving kindness meditation. You're going to hear me saying these affirmations out loud. And when you hear me say these, you would like to just repeat it within your own mind on the out breath. Then after that, we're going to go back to the breathing mindfulness meditation, and then we're going to go back to the chanting. So it's kind of like a loving kindness sandwich. In the middle, you've got loving kindness. Then the lettuce and tomato is like the breathing mindfulness meditation. The bread that's holding it all together is the chanting. So this is the process that we'll go through. And then after the meditation, I'll just kind of open up to questions and see what questions you guys have after you have a chance to experience it. Okay? So if you guys would like to join along, I'm going to start with these chants. And then afterwards, I'm going to come back in with the guidance and guiding you guys through this meditation. In terms of your body position for this meditation, people like to sit on the floor. There's also lying, there's standing. There's even a walking meditation too, but we don't typically do loving kindness in this walking position. But just make yourself comfortable either on the floor or in a chair. There isn't just one fixed way to actually sit during meditation. So just make yourself comfortable, whatever feels comfortable for you. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakava Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa อิติปิโสมหะคะวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสนังโพโตภาควาติ Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled. Just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Then I'll be back with more guidance on loving kindness meditation. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. Continuing to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. Repeat these affirmations in the mind on the out breath. May I be peaceful. May I be safe. May I be well. May I be free of all discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. May mom and dad be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. May my family, friends, neighbors, and co-workers all be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May all those who have harmed me be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May all those who I have harmed be peaceful. May they be safe. May they be well. May they be free of all discontentedness in the suffering that it causes. May all beings, wherever they reside, be peaceful. May all beings be safe. May all beings be well. May all beings be free of discontentedness and the suffering that it causes. Now return back to breathing mindfulness meditation, focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมะคะวะโอตังมหาคะวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาคะวัตตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาคะวะโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหะคะวะอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตวามานุสนังโอโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. So this is loving kindness meditation. As I mentioned, this is going to transform the mind away from the anger, the hatred, the ill will, the frustration, irritation, annoyance, the bitterness, hostility, animosity, the resentment towards others, but also towards this being as well. It's a gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. If you're doing meditation daily and you're doing 2 or 3 meditations a day, I would recommend that you make this your morning meditation, because then you can go out into the world and be more loving and kind with the people around you. That doesn't mean you can't do it in the afternoon or the evening or something like that, because you surely can. Maybe you get a phone call at 4 o'clock and you start noticing anger rising up in the mind at 4 p.m. in the evening. Loving kindness meditation would be ideal for that. But if you start your day with a loving kindness meditation and you go out into the world being loving and kind, this is going to really transform your relationships and it's going to transform your life. So this is a meditation that you can integrate into your practice, and it's going to help you to move closer and closer to this point where the mind is actually enlightened, where the mind is peaceful and joyful permanently. If you have even the slightest little bit of anger or irritation towards any being in your mind whatsoever, you're not going to be able to experience that peace and that joy. Even if these beings are dead and in the past, or you'll never see them again. Maybe they're people long in your past. Maybe there's a boyfriend or a girlfriend that's long in your past, and maybe you're still holding on to that anger. Sometimes the mind thinks you're getting back at that other person by holding on to your anger. This is kind of like holding on to a hot coal and attempting to burn somebody else. The only person that's getting burned is yourself. right? So if you let go of this anger and hostility that's in your mind, you're actually liberating the mind. You're freeing the mind. You don't need to hold on to this animosity and this bitterness. It's not harming anyone except yourself. And this is the meditation that's going to help you to do that. So do you guys have any questions about this meditation? Yes, ma'am. If you can get a mic. Mm-hmm.
My question is, do we need to do it every time in this sandwich way, the loving kindness meditation?
You don't have to. What you'll notice is doing the breathing mindfulness meditation first will really help to get the mind prepared and ready for the loving kindness meditation. But as you get going with your breathing mindfulness meditation and your mind is more focused, more clear, and you've done enough of that over multiple months, some people just go right into loving kindness meditation. And then the same thing on the backside, that breathing mindfulness meditation, that's optional as well. The reason why that's there is sometimes when you're doing loving kindness meditation, you'll notice some anger come up in the mind. Like maybe like you're not mad at mom, but you start meditation and you start doing the loving kindness meditation and you start remembering things that happened in the past, and you might notice some anger bubbling up in the mind. So that breathing mindfulness meditation is there to cut that off and cut that off and cut that off. But you don't have to do that. You can actually leave that off. So if you're noticing at the end of your loving kindness meditation that the loving kindness is permeating in the mind, you might just sit with that and just allow the mind to permeate with loving kindness throughout the rest of your morning and the rest of your day. So you can take that out if you'd like, but I would suggest that you keep it in there for a little while, particularly as you're building up your breathing mindfulness meditation. But then at some point, if you'd like to take it out, there's no harm in doing that.
What about chanting? Should I keep it also?
Chanting is also something that's optional. During the lifetime of the Buddha, it was required for you to chant because you needed to remember the teachings. But today, it's not required in order to get to enlightenment. That's why when you look at that Eightfold Path, there's not a step that says right chanting, right? Because it's not part of the core central teachings. It was something that they used as a mechanism to remember the teachings. But today, we don't need to chant in order to remember the teachings. So you can actually still get to enlightenment without chanting.
Do we need to listen to audio, or we can just repeat all this in our mind and just do it?
Yeah, you can just do it. Like if you have learned it and you don't need this kind of guidance, you can just do it on your own. Initially, when people first get started, they usually like to have some amount of guidance. So you can use our podcast, you can use our YouTube channel, things like this if you'd like. But then ultimately, once you have it and you know how to do it, you would like to be able to do it on your own, where you're not reliant on somebody to guide you through it, but you can do it on your own.
Okay, my last question is, like when I do observing my breath, like breathing meditation. Mm-hmm. When I start to observe my breath, I tend to control my breath. I don't know how to not control when I start to observe it. It becomes unnatural.
Yeah. You might need to do some breath exercises outside of meditation to kind of get the body to breathe more naturally. That's what I had to do, where I had to sit with my eyes open. I wasn't even meditating. I was just kind of like training the body to be able to breathe comfortably, like. You might have to do that for a while before you can combine it with your meditation. Just get used to breathing more gradually and more naturally like that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. Any more questions? Yes.
So would it be a good idea to just focus on may I be peaceful, may I be safe, and wait till a feeling of loving kindness arises? Or if it doesn't arise, just stay with I before moving on to may we be peaceful or may all beings be peaceful?
Loving kindness isn't a feeling, so you're not going to notice a feeling because a feeling is going to arise, change, and fade away. And as you're first getting started, the loving kindness isn't really in the mind at all. You're not going to really kind of feel it, so to speak, because what the mind's anger does is it's almost like erecting a wall between you and other beings. So you might kind of have this internally in the mind. So you can just go right through all these individual rings. But if you'd like to really focus on loving kindness for this being, you can do like what I did, which is do 2 or 3 rings for yourself, and then go to the next layer, whatever that is, and then ultimately to all beings. And you might need to do that for several months before you notice that you're being more loving and kind to this being who you are. But within one meditation, you're not going to necessarily notice any kind of feeling, because loving kindness isn't a feeling, it's a mental state.
So even if we feel some ill will or anger when we're focusing on one ring, we should move on to the next one anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I haven't seen you without your hat yet. Handsome guy. All right. I don't see any other questions anywhere. No more. Oh, we have more questions. Okay, go ahead. I didn't see you guys.
Okay. I didn't really get like what's the purpose of it, because like we cannot wish for us to be on a certain way, because that would be maybe craving for being on a certain state. And you said that it's not sending energy or sending wishes for us and for the other to be on a certain way. So I didn't really understand what does it mean when we say may I be.
Yeah, what you're doing is you're rewiring your mind. Because right now, if you have anger towards this being who you are, the mind is thinking, oh, you stupid jerk, what are you doing? You're an idiot. You know, you didn't do that well enough. Like, why didn't you do that? So that's what's kind of like going on in the mind. But instead, you're rewiring the mind within your own mind. By saying, may I be peaceful, you're rewiring this mind to have positive thoughts towards this being who you are, and then other beings. So you're not sending loving kindness to others. You're rewiring your mind to have loving and kind thoughts about this being and other beings. And now that'll come through in your intentions, your speech, and your actions. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I kind of understand her question. It's like, because usually we shouldn't like craving and asking for something or someone to fit our expectation, right? But the words here we use is may. Mm-hmm. Like, are we like asking something from ourselves? Like, should ourselves be like peaceful, and I should be safe, and I should be well, like this kind. I'm still craving something, like.
No, you're not asking anybody of anything, and you're not craving anything here. What a craving is where you have a longing, yearning for something, where you're chasing after the objects of your affection, and you're forming your inner feelings based on whether you get this thing or not. That's a want or an expectation. So by just saying, may I be peaceful, sometimes people think this is like a prayer, like you're trying to get some being to make you to be loving and kind. But that's not the case. By repeating this in your mind, you're rewiring your mind to be loving and kind, not in a way that you're longing and yearning for it, but you're developing these thinking and these thoughts, these intentions to have love and kindness, where you have this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, including this being who you are.
But for example, like I feel like some negative feelings like anger or disappointment is we are natural human beings. It's very natural things too. But let's say if sometimes I feel disappointed or angry, and now I started like, I should have this loving kindness on my side, and I should force myself to change to, okay, I should be peaceful, I should be, this non-illness, this kind of thing is like a little, how should I say, I still force myself to change.
You don't need to force yourself to change. You can make wise decisions towards changing. There's feelings of anger and hatred and ill will and disappointment and frustration. You don't need to live with that. That's not part of what you have to do. Right now, with an unenlightened mind, that's what you'll experience, but you don't have to experience that. You can opt out of that. You can choose to train your mind to get rid of that, eliminating the causes and conditions in your mind that are producing that. but you don't need to chase after it. You don't need to force this upon this being. You can come to the middle, right? Because what the unenlightened mind can see very clearly is the chasing and the craving and what you're describing as forcing. And you can see really clearly over here where the mind just doesn't care. It's indifferent. But there's this middle way that the Buddha is inviting you to do, which is, if you would like, your own choices to gradually work towards the goals, objective, or interests of purifying your mind, where you don't need to experience frustration and agitation and annoyance. People have kind of adopted this and thinking that, this is just what a human being experiences, and they've just kind of, succumbed to, this is just the way I'm going to be, because this is the way the human being is functioning. But you can get to a point where your mind doesn't do that anymore. But it's a choice for each individual to choose to make, and then you just wisely walk towards that rather than chasing after it or forcing the mind to do it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay. All right, I'm not seeing any other questions here. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take a little bit of a break. And when I come back from the break, I'm going to teach what is Gamma and how does it affect me. You guys are welcome to learn this if you like. I'm also going to teach what is merit. And then by 12:30, we're going to take a break for 6 hours, and we're going to go to an orphanage to be able to donate some supplies to them, like food and other things like this. If anybody would like to go to that, please come talk to me so that I can get a final count for that. If you're not going and you would like to contribute to this project, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a bowl up here. If you would like to donate some funds, we'll use it to be able to purchase things at the orphanage. It's up to you if you'd like to do that or not. There's no expectation that you will. I'm going to add some money into that myself so that we can have some food to be able to give to the orphanage. So I'm going to be teaching this, what is Gamma and how does it affect me? I'm going to be teaching merit. Then we're going to go on the excursion to the orphanage today, and then when we come back, I'm going to be teaching what is the jhanas. For those of you guys that are maybe just here for the morning, maybe you're not coming back after the break, that's fine. It's really wonderful to spend some time with you guys, but if you would like to come back, you're more than welcome to, because all the retreats and classes and courses that I teach, they're available at no cost. I don't charge for the books, for the videos, the podcasts, the personal guidance, the courses and retreats. You can download our books for free. You can take them and go print them. You can get printed versions here by just reimbursing us for our printing cost. You can order them on Amazon. You'll see classes and courses and retreats on our bulletin board over there. You'll also see it on our website, and you're always welcome to join either here at the temple, or we also live stream our classes, courses, and retreats, and you can join no matter where you are in the world. So if I see you after break, wonderful. And if not, have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day. Perhaps we'll see you next time. Sawadee khap. Sawadee khap. Oh, we're going to take a